Hello guys, this is Amit Shirsagar. Uh, I have planned to start giving some of the demos and tutorials to set up Spring Boot application and cloud applications, how we can develop production level applications using these Java framework stack. And also I will be going along with some architectural guidelines, planning how we can develop the microservices, the networking, the security related aspects, along with front-end UI development in Angular React. Most likely Angular React I will be giving very brief introductions, but mainly I'll be focusing on the backend related applications. I will also give details about how we can develop the Spring Boot application along with other cloud configurations or Spring Boot Cloud or Spring Cloud, especially the config server, Eureka server, Hystrix, circuit breaker, JDBC, along with the NoSQL database, a lot of other things we will be touching around, and we will be trying to incorporate all these things one by one and learning each aspect of this application. So without much delay, let's start with some basic introduction information for the Stack framework that we are going to use. So Java, when initially it was developed, it was having the different packages like system, net packages, then IO related, file system related. So their plan was to basically provide these packages to develop applications, and these networking related packages were implementing the basic socket classes, bidirectional socket, and these classes, but these were very low level. After initial development, they come up with the concepts of servlets, JSPs. Then there were Struts framework that was developed, Struts 1, Struts 2, then there was Liferay. So these few additional frameworks came over the period of time. But 2000, I think 2012, 13, they started developing Spring Boot framework, and after Spring Boot development, the framework has gained the popularity, and it has been in competition for a very long time, and it is very robust. The applications are very reliable. We have a lot of security features built in around that, and there has been a lot of services, plugins being developed, and a lot of libraries being built to support the Spring Boot applications. We have also over the period of time come up with this Spring Cloud applications where we can use the config server, Eureka, registry server, then nowadays Vault related things are also available which we can incorporate. So a lot of things related to cloud also are available under different library versions in Spring Cloud. But let's start with first, what is Spring? So Spring is basically the set of features which are targeted for enterprise application development, be it related to security, be it related to it API development, microservice development, or file system related access, database related access. So those things they started developing as a classes which can be injected with the configuration. That is called as dependency injection. The way we used to do the dependency injection initially in the Spring framework was by providing the configuration in XML file. It was a lot of manual and tedious effort that we used to do, but later on, as we started getting more and more auto configuration with the Spring Boot, the process shifted to annotation and then development of these applications with annotation based or properties file based or YAML file based configuration. Spring Boot allows you to use these Spring Framework libraries easily and without much dependency configuration, because you have to be very careful about selecting different versions of different files and making sure that all these libraries are going to be compatible with each other. So Spring Boot does help in that, and you can use Spring Starter configurations to start or initialize the required dependencies and use that feature in your application. So basically you have Java development with basic framework, then you have Spring framework which you can use, and then you have larger Spring Boot, and then we will also go around and check on the things related to Spring config, Spring Cloud. So let's see. So you can see, I will show you currently the Spring framework is around 6.1 came up yesterday. So 6 has been introduced a year back, and this Spring Framework 6 has been implemented with Spring Boot 3.1, and it has the support related to Java 17 and above. So you should be able to see what Spring Boot versions support what kind of Java versions. So you should be able to see, even though few of the previous versions like 2.5 to 2.7, it was supporting 17, but there are still issues, libraries which will give problem when you are trying to use, like Swagger, auto generation, then documentation, SpringFox documentation related. So it is always recommended to see the latest version with some long-term lifecycle support, usually 3 years plus if you can get, and you start your application building with that version. So for Spring Framework, you should rely mostly for production related with 6.1 now, but 5.3 was their LTS previously. It still has support till next 3 years. But if you are building a new application, I would suggest, because you can see that this LTS support is also going to be going away in December 2026. So it is worth going with 6.1 now. So you will have some better coverage available. And for the recent 3.x versions for Spring Boot, they have given a lot of flexibility and new configuration mechanisms available. It will be still tedious work to port any of this application from 5 to 6, but it is doable. but there might be some challenges you have to find out, and there might be some additional work related to configuration rewriting you might want to do. Because the YAML files, the hierarchy of configuration has been changed significantly with these two versions. So let's say we want to start now our application. Okay, so let's go to, say, our terminal and launch this application in VS Code. Now you can use multiple different options for IDE. You have Spring STS, you have VS Code, then you have IntelliJ, Eclipse. I would prefer right now VS Code because this is something I have been using for last couple of years. But I have used IntelliJ. Though the community version is not that great, it still works, but not very useful if you don't have Spring Boot plugins available there. But if you have Spring Boot plugins and Ultimate Edition, it's the best idea I would suggest. Spring STS is another one, which is a version of Eclipse, but I used to work on that, and that's also very good application IDE. And the only reason why I'm not using it is like I have moved to start using this VS Code a couple of years back, and it's been some time now. I have forgotten most of the shortcuts and options where to find what. So just we'll see. Okay. So once you go into VS Code, let's say I want to create a new Spring Boot application. So first of all, I need to have this plugin extension available. You should be able to see it here. And you can install the Spring Initializer Java application. And once you install this, you will be able to have different Spring related other tools developed, installed on your IDE VS Code. Okay. Now, in order to start the Spring Boot Initializer, just press Ctrl P. It will open up this command window. Now, in this command window, you should be able to see the option to launch the Spring Initializer. You can see that here. Okay. Now, here, if you click Enter, you will be able to select the different version with which you want to start your application. So suppose if I want to start my application with 3.1.5, this is the latest stable version. You can go with snapshot version, but I wouldn't recommend to start it with, because sometimes some of the features might not be supported properly, or it might have some buggy code. So you can specify the language as Java. Okay. Now you can specify the package. Say I want to give here, say, framework. I want to give now the Artifactory ID. Suppose this is my Spring Boot demo. Okay. Now what do I want to build it? jar or var. Usually var files are something that we use to build with front end and back end code together, but for now Spring Boot applications usually are built with jar files, and those do not need to be deployed on any external server as such, because they internally contain the included Tomcat dependencies, which is very much sufficient already. So let's go with that. Now I can select the Java version I want to use. So you can select that 17. Okay. Now you will have option to select some of the libraries which you want to start with your boot application. Okay. With this, I would recommend you to start with Spring Boot Dev tools. I would also suggest you to start using this web if you are building the web application REST, then you can here search as well. So you can use this Lombok. I will let you know what exactly we are doing with these libraries. But let's say if we want to continue and start with these three dependencies. Okay. Now, once we have selected needed dependencies, you can select the enter to continue. Now this is going to create the folder, generate into this folder. Basically, the code will be pushed into in this folder. You can see where I'm trying to save it, and this is being saved. Okay, so now this has been saved. Let's say this application has been saved here. So let's go and say we want to go in here and open with, you can go and start with code. Okay, now let me explain what this has generated. Okay, so the Spring Boot application basically is going to use this Maven dependency management. Now the packages which we selected, the Spring Boot framework, the DevTools and Lombok, okay, it comes internally along with the starter. We didn't have to select this, but it has automatically included that. So that whatever selection we did, the versions, it has included all these versions directly. And now here you can see there hasn't been any version directly mentioned on these particular dependencies. The reason being, the application which we created is importing the Spring Boot version with Spring Boot starter parent as 3.1.5. So whatever this particular version is providing, you can see that it has all the dependency management listed here. Okay, and all these libraries, whatever we are using, somewhere in the parent, they are making sure that the dependencies are being addressed and accounted for, the versions. And all these are maintained by Spring Boot team. So it is usually reliable to just not use any other version than what they are suggesting. Whatever they are suggesting, that is the best version to go with. If you find any newer version than theirs, and if you feel like you can use the newer feature without backward compatibility issues, you can do that, but it is not very much recommended. Okay, so this is here. Then we have a plugin section, you can see here. Now there are multiple different plugins which comes with here. It also includes the plugin related to Spring Boot. Now when we want to start the application or test the application, we can use that. And I'll show you how exactly we are doing that. This actually generates the jar file in this target folder. Okay, you can see our code has been generated in src main Java. Okay. The other resources like static pages, HTML, JavaScript, or CSS files, images, those are usually stored in static or public folders under resources. If you have any templates like JSPs, ThimeLeaf, then you can use those in this templates folder. And the properties you can start defining in this application.properties. Usually if we want to start with, we will go with overriding some of the default properties like port and 80. Okay, so this is going to be our default port. But along with that, if you don't feel like this properties file is easier for you to work, maybe you can just change this to rename and convert it to a YAML file. and this will still work. So basically you can do something like port, yeah, and this configuration is legitimate configuration. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's start now, and there is another folder, test folder, which has been created, and you can start writing JUnit test cases here. Now, in order to start your application, you have to open the terminal, okay, and you can write nvn. First, let's just package the application and see if it is getting built correctly or not. So you can see that when we do a package command, it runs the tests, it compiles, runs the tests, and creates the jar file. So this is the jar file which has been created under target folder. You can see. Okay. So once this is done, if you want to start this application as a dev mode, you can run spring boot :run. Okay, and once you do that, any change, even if you make any changes in your application, suppose if during the application startup, suppose if I want to use and add some say annotations and use some debugging like say log dot info. Now you remember we initially started with the application logging. Okay, yeah, we started with our dependency management with Lombok and dev tools. So basically this dev tools allows you to rerun the application and hot deploy the code. So whenever you make any change, you can see that this application starts and you can see that the log is being generated here. So see the log is being printed before the Spring Boot is even starting. So if you want to see this log after that, you can see that this has been changed now. You see this has been changed. So basically now during this line, whatever is happening is being recorded until there, and then we start our application logs. Now after your application is started, usually there will be application endpoints being available on the port, say localhost 8080 actuator. Now we don't have any actuator related dependencies or endpoints enabled, but we can do that, and we will see that in next few coming videos. But for now, you can see that the server has been up, and we should be able to write our first endpoint, and it will be able to serve that. Okay, so let's say so I think we should be able to stop now, and I'll continue the further description of this project in next coming videos.